Bill Maher and Ben Shapiro go head-to-head on Real Time. Religion versus morality, Kamala Harris, 107 days, and the Biden debate fallout. Roll it.
People who believe biblically, which is not everybody who believes biblically, believes that virtue should lead to better results in life than non-virtue. That to me is one, as a believing Jew, that is one of the central points of the book of Deuteronomy, right? You're supposed to choose life so you and your children shall live. Doesn't mean that you have to agree with everything in Deuteronomy or Leviticus. Bill,
but that's
I'm not going to make
Bill
you.
does, so
I know, but like, that's always such a silly argument, because if God wrote the book, how could there be things we don't agree with? It either got to be perfect because it's written by you-know-who, or it's just not perfect and written by people, which it was, obviously, and it's full of nonsense and wickedness and things that are everything but virtuous.
So, Bill, you and I agree on morality. I'd say like 87%.
Morality,
87.5.
but not from the Bible.
I have a question. Why?
Because it's for slavery. Because it's okay with slavery.
Why do you and I agree on morality like 87.5%? I'm a religious Jew. You're an atheist. Why do we agree on those things? I'll tell you. I mean, I can give you my answer.
Yeah, please.
Because we probably grew up a few miles from each other in a Western society that has several thousand years of biblical history behind it. And so you can think that you hit that triple and you formed your own morality, but the reality is you were born morally on third base.
No, okay. We got that morality from the Enlightenment, which was an anti-religious movement. The founding fathers, they weren't religious people. They were deists. They weren't particularly Christy.
Thomas Jefferson used the morality of the Bible when he was ripping all the miracles out of the Bible.
Yes.
He literally wrote a version of the Bible without the miracles. I mean, that is...
We discussed this the last time I was here, and you were talking about all of Jesus's teachings and how this was really radical new stuff, right? And how it changed the world.
His basic philosophy, yes.
And how without that, I mean, I think it's worth understanding that what the pivot point in history when we talk about Judeo-Christian ethics, but more specifically Christian ethics, what a turning point in history that represented for within the Roman Empire and beyond, in terms of medicine, in terms of care for the widow and the orphan. Much of what we would consider to be sort of good, moral, ethical behavior was not, in fact, a commonplace or mainstream thing several centuries ago. And so I think to Ben's point, some of that
Why do we still do it? Why do we still admire it?
Because, because cut flowers die. Meaning that if the flower is the result of the root, and then you cut the flower, you can live on with a secular humanistic morality, be a moral person, be a good person, but it does not systemically maintain. If there's no actual outgrowth from a basis of belief that this is fundamentally demanded of you by a higher power, because you can't get from atheism to reductive morality just by pure reason, right? Even every atheist will acknowledge this. The values that you believe are not things that can just be reasoned to, because they assume things that are not in evidence, like the inherent value of humanity. I mean,
Shapiro's dropping the ultimate mic line here. Without faith, we're just pieces of meat wandering through space. That's his way of saying atheists can't justify morality without a higher power. Agree or not, it's a heavy swing in this debate. You can see Bill's face. He is not buying it.
Pieces of meat wandering through space. What's the inherent value of that? These are all religious, faith-based premises. You don't have to believe in God to believe in those things, but they are logical jumps. They are leaps of faith, is what we would call that in religion. And so at least acknowledging that recognizes that we're all living in a world of faith, whether you believe in God or not.
I'm just saying the book, the wellspring from where you're getting this morality, is so deeply flawed, even if it was just the slavery thing. And it's not just that. I mean, if you rape a woman, it's a property crime. We're talking about Bronze Age people who had a whole different way of looking at things, which was not as advanced as we are. And it's like, well, you know, we have these things. It's like saying, well, jump in the pool. There's only one turd in there.
Well, it's more like saying that as a religious person, the basic idea is that God has to speak to humans of the time, and then human beings have to apply their reason. This is why the relationship between reason and faith is not just you take it on faith and you do whatever the Bible says. I mean, this is why there's a developed oral tradition in Judaism, or this is why there's a developed natural law tradition in Catholicism. I mean, the idea is that it's an admixture of human reason and those faith-based principles. But here's the real question. If the sort of reasonable morality that you espouse is universal, then why is it not even remotely universal on planet Earth? Okay, it is only found in Christian-based societies. You will not find it unless it was grafted on later by, you know, us conquering someplace.
Christian-based? You saying this with the yarmulke on?
Yes, because because Christians believe the first half of the Bible, which is mine.
I'm working on them, Bill. I'm working on them.
Well, as you know, I mean, This is the point where I remind all Christians in my... First of all, I appreciate all the attempts to convert me, and yes, you get infinity heaven points if you're the one who does it, is what I have heard.
All right, final question. What does... Kamala Harris, boy, she does not have a lot of luck. Like this week, her book comes out. She was trying to do the press, and then, of course, all this news buried it. The book is called 107 Days. Wink, wink. That's all. It's all the time I had to win, just 107 days.
Only there were 108.
Yeah.
Would have gotten there.
And she only had $1.5 billion. I don't know how she could have cut and get a message out. But what does the panel think of Kamala Harris's admission that it was reckless to let Joe and Jill Biden decide on his re-election bid? Yes, this is the big takeaway from the book, is that she says, Joe, we kept saying, she says like a mantra, it's their personal decision. And now she's saying after the fact, well, actually, it wasn't really just a personal decision. It did have some effect on the country.
Kamala Harris is acting like she was just a bystander, saying it was reckless to let Joe and Jill decide. Give me a break. You were the vice president of the United States. You thought Biden wasn't fit? You had a duty to the country, not to sit quiet and write a book about it later.
What if there was an amendment to the Constitution, say like the 25th Amendment, that allowed the vice president of the United States and the other cabinet officials to recognize that the president was brain dead and actually do something about it? And what if you then just sat there and did nothing until Joe Biden had his head cave in, basically, on national television in a debate with Donald Trump and stare into the great maw of death off screen with a frozen grimace, and then you still waited a month for him to drop out?
It wasn't that bad. It was. It was a. Let's not rewrite the history. It was a terrible debate performance from an elderly man, excuse me, who in the quiet of the Oval Office had not lost his marbles and was still able to make decisions among his staff, okay?
Well,
that's who we were dealing with.
We don't know.
Was he able to run? No. Was he able to do the job?
Or bike, by the way. He was
or bike, yes.
Well, we don't know if he lost his marbles because he doesn't know how many there were or how many he had to find.
Can I just say,
this is why the country will never heal, because nobody can ever just come.
But the tough thing about the Harris book, right, is that she writes this as though she was some backbench, low-level staffer without agency. It's not dissimilar to what Mike Pence did towards the end of the Trump presidency, and then he comes out after and says, "Oh shucks, and it's like you were the vice president of the United States.
Yeah.
If it was reckless for him to do this, Madam Vice President, did you not have a responsibility to the country to say something about it?"
I mean, Trump does the same thing. Last week, he tweeted out, "I guess we've lost India to China." It's like,
who did that? Yeah.
And that's the bottom line. Shapiro and Maher go at it over faith and morality, and then Kamala tries to dodge responsibility for Biden's collapse. This is the kind of political theater the media spins, but here we call it straight. You're watching Straight Fire Politics. Hit the subscribe, drop a comment, and keep it locked right here for the unfiltered truth.